Hello humans, I'm Yoshiller, and much like many Nintendo fans out there, I am curious as to where the Mario Kart franchise could possibly go next. In fact, in recent times, there's been quite a bit of discussion regarding whether or not the next logical direction for Mario Kart would be a Mario Kart 9 or something more along the lines of a Nintendo Kart. Well, I've thought about this subject for a long time, and I had a lot of input that I wanted to provide, so I figured I'd just go ahead and make a video about it. But let's get a few things squared away, because I don't want people to try and act like wise guys in the comment section. So first off, let's make something very clear. Nintendo Kart is not Super Smash Kart. For some reason, every time someone brings up the idea of Nintendo making a Nintendo Kart, everyone immediately compares it to Super Smash Bros. I assume that this is because Super Smash Bros. Is Nintendo's big crossover franchise. They don't really do other crossovers very often, so I get that much. However, I think a more fair comparison would be to envision Nintendo Kart as something more similar to Nintendo Land for the Wii U. That is to say, it'd more so just be a game with a culmination of popular Nintendo IPs rather than focusing on a ton of all-stars from across the gaming industry. I'd envision it less as speculating what character's gonna be in the game and more as just a fun, simple game to play with friends and family. See, it's truly a miracle that Super Smash Bros. Even came to be, but I think that people forget that the team that made Super Smash Bros. Ultimate would most likely not be the same team that would develop Nintendo Kart. Smash games these days are often developed by Namco, but they were originally developed by HAL Laboratory, and while the company is often affiliated with Nintendo and Nintendo owns partial ownership of the company, I don't know the exact amount, I don't know if that's ever been specified, but the point is, HAL Laboratory has never worked on a Mario Kart game. These days, HAL Laboratory primarily works on the Kirby and Box Boy games, and while they have dabbled in other projects in the past, such as Pokemon Snap, I find it highly unlikely that they'd be the chosen developers to develop Nintendo Kart. In contrast, the developers of the Mario Kart games have consistently developed Mario Kart games over the years. They would be the in-house Nintendo team often referred to as Nintendo EAD Kyoto Software Development Department. But for the sake of conversation, I'm just gonna call this group in-house Nintendo, as this development team has worked on many other projects and has even been merged with other Nintendo development teams over the years. The in-house Nintendo development team works on the big franchises, and these are primarily Mario, Zelda, Animal Crossing, Splatoon, and the Wii Sports games. There are more, but I'll touch on those later in the video. Those would be the big ones though, and that's why you see these specific characters advertised all over the place on Nintendo products. The point is that the in-house Nintendo development team would be the most probable candidate to develop either a Mario Kart 9 or a Nintendo Kart, not HAL Laboratory or Namco. And while the in-house Nintendo development team might take a few notes from the Super Smash Bros. Development team, I find it more likely that they do their own things rather than try to make a translation of the party fighting game that is Smash and attempt to translate that into a kart racer. And the other thing that I feel the need to mention before I start discussing things is, yes, I know the Mario Kart naming system is weird, but Mario Kart Tour is not Mario Kart 9. In fact, if you want to be really technical, it'd be closer to like Mario Kart 12 or something if we count the arcade games. Come on, you guys gotta work with me here. When I say Mario Kart 9, I'm referring to a game that'd be more of a direct sequel to the Nintendo Switch title Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It'd be another official game in the Mario Kart series, and it may even have a different subtitle. Maybe it wouldn't be called Mario Kart 9, maybe it'd be called Mario Kart Turbo or Mario Kart Ultimate, but for the sake of this conversation, I shall be referring to it as Mario Kart 9. Okay, so what do I think Nintendo should do next? What do I, little old Yoshiller, that barely knows anything about the gaming industry and Nintendo's inner workings and financial plans, think that Nintendo should do with their next beloved iconic kart racer? What do I think? Well, I've always leaned toward the idea of Nintendo Kart. I've mentioned the idea of a Nintendo Kart many times throughout the years, even all the way back in 2017, which is when Nintendo first decided to re-release Mario Kart 8 on the Nintendo Switch with its Deluxe branding. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe then went on to become the Nintendo Switch's best-selling game and sold more than 30 million units. So naturally, it would make sense that Nintendo would want to make a sequel to the game. But since the game is still continuing to sell even in 2022, I thought Nintendo would want to make a game that would function well as a sequel, but would not take away from the sales of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I figured that something in the vein of Nintendo Kart made sense because it would still have Nintendo in the title for its IP awareness, and it could still incorporate elements and ideas from Mario Kart, and it could potentially spawn a new franchise that could continue to sell alongside Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And then that would leave the door open in the future for Nintendo to develop an actual Mario Kart 9, and potentially a Nintendo Kart 2 even beyond that. To be fair, I do feel as though it's a little easier to discuss the general idea of a Mario Kart 9, so I guess that's where I'll start this overall discussion. In recent years, Mario Kart has truly bloomed as one of Nintendo's all-time best franchises, and it's done wonders to help Nintendo reach their goals of bringing families together and encouraging player interconnectivity. But for some reason, many players don't think Nintendo could release 2 Mario Kart games on the same system, and to that, I have to wonder, why not? Nintendo has already demonstrated in the past that they have no issue releasing sequels to games on the same systems as their predecessors, so why would Mario Kart be any different? Nintendo has released multiple Mario Party games on one system. Heck, the GameCube had 4 Mario Party games. Nintendo released multiple Super Mario Galaxy games on one system. Nintendo has released multiple Zelda games on the same system before, and they're about to release 2 Splatoon games for the Nintendo Switch. The primary reason Nintendo systems likely never saw multiple Mario Kart games on one system was because it would often take so long to develop one Mario Kart game in the first place that, at that point, by the time the sequel was in development, it just made more sense to release the next Mario Kart game for the next Nintendo system instead. But since it seems as though the Nintendo Switch is here to stay for a few more years, it would make sense that the next Mario Kart game would be ready to go for the Nintendo Switch. Releasing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe so early on in the Switch's life cycle was more likely a tactical play on Nintendo's part to allow them to develop a new proper Mario Kart title. But if we were to get a Mario Kart 9, it would still be a game in the Mario Kart line. So I believe that there are a few safe assumptions that fans could make regarding the type of content we could expect. Mario Kart has been set up so far that I think it would be reasonable to expect at least 32 tracks, with roughly half of them being recreations of tracks from older Mario Kart games. And it would be safe to assume that there would be a track based on Mario Circuit, a track based on Bowser's Castle, and a track based on Rainbow Road. That much has been consistent over the years in the Mario Kart franchise. And then the overall gameplay would have some sort of major gimmick that would help differentiate it from previous Mario Kart titles, much like how gliding was Mario Kart 7's core mechanic and Zero Gravity was Mario Kart 8's. And then the playable character roster would just go to town on Mario characters. Maybe we'd get an occasional guest character like Link and Inkling from the previous Mario Kart games, but I imagine the focus would still be on Mario characters. And hey, if we're lucky, I think the character roster of Mario Super Sluggers would show that there are a fair share of characters that have yet to be playable in Mario Kart. But the most important thing would be that ever-changing gameplay mechanic. It would be important to introduce a mechanic that gives players a reason to own both Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Mario Kart 9 on the same system. Ideally, Nintendo may want players to still purchase both games going forward. Now, Nintendo has already made it clear that they're kinda done adding additional updates and support to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but they would still want people to buy it, right? An extra sale is an extra sale. So, Nintendo would need to do more than just add a few new characters and courses. They'd really need a different mechanical system that wouldn't take away from what 8 Deluxe had, but would also give players a reason to go back and play old content. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. On the Nintendo Switch, there is Super Mario Party and Mario Party Superstars. These are 2 completely different games in the same series, and there is reason to own both. Super Mario Party primarily focuses on motion-based minigames and has completely different sets of boards and rules, while Mario Party Superstars primarily focuses on button-based minigames and serves as more of a collection of older Mario Party installments. Each game provides their own experiences, so players are more enticed to own both titles. Despite being in the same franchise, they offer completely different experiences, and one doesn't really outweigh the other. More people might like one than the other, but both are still perfectly good games, with plenty of reason to go back and play each of them. So Nintendo would need to do something similar here. I guess it could just be different characters and different courses, but I think a more strategic option would be to incorporate gameplay elements that expand upon the franchise while still providing some incentive to play the previous installments. But as for my guesses about there being 32 tracks and there being characters from Mario Super Sluggers, I mean, those are just safe guesses. The game would likely look awesome to play and play awesomely and be an all-around awesome experience, and I'm sure that I will purchase it and enjoy it for years to come. But I also feel as though Nintendo could really do something different if, instead of a new Mario Kart, they made a Nintendo Kart. And by making a Nintendo Kart, they already have a solution to have people still buy Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and buy a new Nintendo game. There would be incentive to own both. But again, anytime I bring up the idea of Nintendo Kart, people think that it has to be advertised like Super Smash Bros. Like there has to be trailers that reveal specific characters or specific modes, and I just don't think that's what Nintendo Kart has to be. People think there has to be speculation about character reveals, and people would be fearful of what the final roster would be, and that's why I have to constantly reiterate that Nintendo Kart is not Super Smash Kart. Super Smash Bros. Has become a celebration of gaming in recent years and features many noteworthy characters from numerous corners of the gaming industry. Sure, it primarily features Nintendo characters, but many of the characters included are characters that needed to be licensed and are not fully owned by Nintendo as a whole beyond advertising purposes. And I'm not just talking about all the third-party characters. Like, yeah, no duh, Nintendo doesn't own Joker or Steve. But I'm referring to the characters that might have great representation in Super Smash Bros., but maybe not so great representation in other Nintendo media. The prime example is Pokemon. Pokemon is a franchise that is well represented in Super Smash Bros., but in the grand scheme of things, the development team was quite lucky to even be able to get the rights to incorporate Pikachu. Pikachu, and Pokemon as a whole, is developed by a company called Game Freak, and Nintendo only owns about a third of the Pokemon franchise as a whole. As far as I know, owning that third just gives Nintendo access to profits of the Pokemon company, and they're allowed to advertise Pikachu in certain other aspects, such as in those Nintendo Switch commercials. But if Nintendo wants to incorporate Pikachu into something, such as a costume in Super Mario Maker or a hat in some other game, then the rights holders to Pokemon need to approve it. Why do you think every other character in Yoshi's Woolly World had an amiibo costume, including other non-Nintendo characters like Sonic, but Pikachu, one of the most famous fictional characters in the world, didn't have one? Simple, because the rights holders of Pikachu said no. Nintendo does not have full ownership over Pikachu or Pokemon. Now, that isn't to say that Pikachu or a Pokemon character couldn't show up in a Nintendo Kart, but more realistically, I feel as though Nintendo would want to focus on their in-house franchises, or franchises of which they have 100% ownership. So as I mentioned earlier, these would involve characters and locations from Mario, Zelda, Animal Crossing, Splatoon, and I guess the Wii Sports series of games. But okay, if those are the primary franchises that would be represented in a game called Nintendo Kart, then I would imagine that Nintendo would really go in on representing those franchises. Unlike Super Smash Bros., where maybe the box art character would have a good chance of showing up in the game, Nintendo Kart would have all sorts of secondary characters and locations. I imagine Nintendo Kart would really help advertise Nintendo's big franchises while also maybe leaning in a bit towards some more retro niche characters for nostalgia. But since I'm still leaning toward the in-house Nintendo development idea, I think that Nintendo's main in-house franchises would mostly take the spotlight in terms of the character selection process. So you'd probably still mostly have Mario characters, Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, Toad, and Yoshi, and then you'd probably have a nice cast of secondary Mario characters like Donkey Kong, Wario, Waluigi, Bowser Jr., Rosalina, and Daisy, and then we'd get a decent of recent and popular Zelda characters. So you'd have your Link and Zelda, but then you'd probably have the 4 champions from Breath of the Wild: Mipha, Urbosa, Revali, and Daruk. Nintendo probably could incorporate other Zelda characters, but I'm not sure what their plans would be. If their plan was to hone in on the recent iteration of Zelda, which is the Breath of the Wild universe, then these would be the primary 6 characters to include. If they wanted to include other Zelda characters, then yeah, I guess you could throw in Ganondorf, but it comes down to, what does Nintendo want? What parts of Mario and Zelda would they want to represent? Maybe they could have more side Mario characters and more Zelda characters. But also, there's Animal Crossing. And I feel as though the Villager and Isabelle are given characters, but then I could also see them adding all sorts of other popular Animal Crossing characters, like Tom Nook and Blathers and Celeste and Label and Captain. Again, I would just see a really big roster of all sorts of Nintendo characters, but each section would be categorized by the franchise to really get players to understand who these characters are. Then there's Splatoon, and Splatoon would obviously have the Inklings, but then I think there'd be characters like Callie and Marie, maybe even Pearl and Marina, and maybe even characters like Sheldon. But then after that, that would be the core franchise that Nintendo would have represented. I guess there'd obviously be Mii's, and then there'd be locations from Wii Sports Resort probably. But after that, Nintendo would have to start pulling from other in-house franchises. Now, for most people out there, it can be a little difficult to keep track of which franchises are 100% in-house Nintendo. But a good point of reference is actually the Amiibo compatibility chart for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So first up, there'd be the Donkey Kong characters. Although the American development team known as Retro Studios has developed the more recent Donkey Kong titles, Nintendo still has full ownership of the Donkey Kong franchise and has regularly incorporated its characters and locations in the various Mario spin-offs and Nintendo titles. And as of January 2022, there's even rumors of a Donkey Kong initiative, with a new Donkey Kong game to come later in the year and an expansion to Japan's Super Nintendo World theme park. So I'd be inclined to believe that Donkey Kong characters would be well represented in Nintendo Kart. Characters such as Diddy Kong and Funky Kong have appeared in Mario Kart in the past anyway, so I feel their odds of appearing in Nintendo Kart would be pretty good. And then Dixie Kong has regained relevancy and has even appeared in Mario Kart Tour. And then as far as other games spun off from the Mario franchise, I guess there's also Luigi's Mansion, Captain Toad, and Yoshi, and I guess they could get some specific representation. But if Nintendo really did want to establish these franchises as individual pillars of their games, then I guess they could have their own individual sections. I just don't know how necessary that would all be. And then Wario is a weird case. I know there's WarioWare, but the issue with those games is that those are not developed by in-house Nintendo. They are developed by Intelligent Systems. It's a similar case to Paper Mario, where Nintendo could acknowledge it if they wanted to, but they often don't. I think the only time that WarioWare was ever represented in a Mario game with the other Mario characters was Mario Tennis on the GameCube, and even then it was kind of minimal. But hey, if Nintendo wanted to do more Wario Land content, then you wouldn't see me complaining, but I think that those odds are slim. Then the next franchise is Kirby, and I already mentioned earlier that Kirby is a HAL Laboratory franchise, but Kirby's amiibo is compatible with Mario Kart. It's just weird. Kirby is very popular in Japan, so including him in a game about Nintendo characters does seem like a logical way to bring in a few additional sales, but Kirby kind of does his own thing these days. I know Mario games and Kirby games kind of used to poke fun at each other in the past, so I don't think including Kirby would be entirely out of the question, but I don't think Kirby would be Nintendo's first choice either. I think Nintendo would rather focus on their other in-house franchises where they own the entirety of them. And it's for similar reasons that I don't think franchises such as Fire Emblem, Kid Icarus, or Xenoblade would be included here either. The only other franchise, if you want to call it a franchise, would be Punch-Out!, which technically is owned by in-house Nintendo, just Next Level Games developed the most recent game in the franchise. And I think it would be funny to have Punch-Out! Representation. I would love to see King Hippo in a cart, but now I think I'm just showing my Punch-Out! Bias. We'll see what Nintendo plans to do with those games. But okay, in terms of more major Nintendo franchises, there's also F-Zero, Star Fox, and Metroid. Now these are interesting cases. Nintendo has outsourced each of these franchises to different companies in recent years, and each franchise has had wavering levels of success. If you asked me about Nintendo Kart a year ago, I would have felt that the most likely candidate to receive a representation in this game would have been Star Fox, as Nintendo really tried to push that IP with animations and E3 related presentations, and it just hasn't sold all too well. I guess Nintendo would still value Star Fox and its characters. I mean, the fans love the characters, so their odds of being a Nintendo Kart would be likely. However, we are in 2022, and the franchise to be the most well represented in recent years was Metroid. Metroid Dread was recently released, and from what I've seen, the game was met with critical acclaim. It sold well, reviewed well, and reinvigorated interest in the Metroid series. So at this point, it would feel weird to not include a Metroid rep in a Nintendo-focused game. So with all of that said, I feel as though Star Fox's Fox McCloud and Metroid Samus would be likely to appear as playable characters. I don't know about additional characters from each of these franchises, but I feel as though Star Fox and Metroid representation would be easy. But then, there's F-Zero. Honestly, I've had another F-Zero video just sitting around for a long time. I wanted to make a video about how now would be the prime time for an F-Zero game, and if Nintendo really wanted to make a new racing game that wouldn't directly compete with the sales of Mario Kart, then they should make an F-Zero title. But regardless of all of that, this is Nintendo Kart, not F-Zero. So Captain Falcon having representation might be pretty likely. I feel comfortable saying that solely for the fact that the people who work on Mario Kart just like F-Zero. There was also a time back in the 90s when Nintendo considered having Captain Falcon as the mascot for the Super Nintendo. So I could see Nintendo going for a push that uses Captain Falcon, but they use an F-Zero course that's more based on the retro F-Zero games rather than the recent ones. They might even give Captain Falcon a redesign. And on the topic of retro games, well, let's talk about retro characters. This would be an amazing opportunity for Nintendo to include some fun retro content for us hardcore fans. And since this game is about celebrating Nintendo, this is where things would really separate it from Super Smash Bros. In Smash, there are a fair share of characters who may just not realistically work in a fighting game, so their representation is often minimal. But in a kart racer, I believe that more characters and franchises would be fair game. I think characters from Balloon Fight and Excite Bike would be awesome to incorporate. I don't know about other retro characters like the Duck Hunt Dog or the Ice Climbers, but I feel pretty confident about Rob being playable, especially since he was in Mario Kart DS. And then maybe there'd be some other in-house Nintendo franchises that could be represented. Mole Mania, Takamaru, 1080 Snowboarding, Wave Race. There's quite a few awesome options to choose from here. Really, this would be a great time to show some other Nintendo IPs and potentially spark renewed interest in a couple of them. In fact, the other IP to possibly bring up is ARMS. I know a lot of people like to dismiss ARMS and act as if it was a flop, even though It really wasn't. It sold quite well, and really, if Nintendo has other plans for these characters in this franchise, then including a couple of characters in Nintendo Kart would make sense. I could see a few characters being added. Springman and Ribbon Girl would be likely, and maybe also Min Min because she's the fan favorite. I don't really know how a racetrack would work, but if Nintendo Kart were to have a battle mode like Mario Kart's, then that is where implementing ARMS courses could be really fun. And finally, I've been leaving out a pretty major Nintendo franchise, and that's Pikmin. Yeah, that's an in-house Nintendo franchise that just doesn't get as much spotlight as Nintendo's other franchises. But I feel very comfortable in saying that Nintendo would want to promote Pikmin in Nintendo Kart. Olimar would be an easy candidate for a playable character, and there could even be multiple tracks based on many of the locations from Pikmin 1, 2, and 3. And if they wanted to add more Pikmin characters, then I can easily see characters like Alf, Brittany, and Charlie becoming playable, and if they wanted to get really fun, they could make the president from Pikmin 2 playable as well. So that addresses the main in-house Nintendo franchises, but let's talk about third party. I would think that in a game called Nintendo Kart, there probably wouldn't be any third party characters. I know the Sonic, Mega Man, and Pac-Man amiibo are compatible with Mario Kart 8, but I think that those are just lucky inclusions. They were more a matter of the product of their times, and Nintendo was really trying to push amiibo, so having cool little features like that in Mario Kart made sense, but in Nintendo Kart, I don't think we should expect to see anything like that. If there was one third party non-Nintendo character to be in Nintendo Kart, I'd put money on Pac-Man. But otherwise, I'd expect Nintendo Kart to be a celebration of just Nintendo, in contrast to Super Smash Bros., where it mostly became a celebration of gaming as a whole. And then the courses? Oh, the courses would be all over the place. I guess one of the plus sides of Mario Kart is that courses can really be based on anything, but the perk of Nintendo Kart would be courses based on all sorts of Mario, Zelda, Animal Crossing, Splatoon, Pikmin, ARMS, Wii Sports, Punch-Out locations. It'd be fun to just race through grand scale locations from established Nintendo IPs. And the fun part is, there doesn't just have to be one course per franchise. Having Inklings would no longer be a guest inclusion. This is a major implementation for Nintendo Kart. There could be multiple Splatoon courses. Since we aren't just limited to Mario anymore, the representation for franchises through their courses is now much greater. There'd probably still be places that appeared in Mario Kart previously, sure. But my point here is that there could just be a bunch of Nintendo tracks, and just the idea sounds so cool. But ultimately, it all comes down to what Nintendo wants to do. So really, the whole point of speculating all of this was pointless. But if the debate between Mario Kart 9 or Nintendo Kart ever comes up again, I'll at least have this video that condenses all of my thoughts. Even if we don't get a Nintendo Kart next, I feel as though the idea of a Nintendo Kart at all isn't entirely out of the question. And I think it can be a whole lot more fun than people might be making it out to be. Really, Nintendo could go either way, Mario Kart 9 or Nintendo Kart. But I personally believe that if Nintendo really wanted to have a better time expanding their IPs and not risking the fall of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's sales, then Nintendo Kart just sounds more logical. A man can dream, I suppose. Maybe we'll see Nintendo Kart one day. Either way, Nintendo's got something cooking. I'm sure whatever they make will be great. It's been in development for a long time, so it ought to be. I mainly just wanted to provide my 2 cents on the subject matter. Really, I'm personally fine with either option, but I just felt it necessary to explain what I feel the potential of Nintendo Kart could be, and how I feel the need to explain one final time, Nintendo Kart is not Super Smash Kart. It wouldn't need to be, it could be its own thing and it could be awesome, but I'll take either option, Mario Kart 9 or Nintendo Kart. I would just prefer a Nintendo Kart. Hey, thank you for watching my video. If you want to continue to support my content, the best thing you can do is like this video and subscribe to my channel. All you have to do is click the little buttons down below. Also, please be sure to follow me on Twitter to stay up to date with my video schedule. My tag is @RealYoshiller. I hope to see you all in future videos. Bye-bye! Whoosh!